My name is Savannah Cole. I'm 22, freshly graduated with an MBA, and the trust my grandfather left me was supposed to secure my independence. Instead, I'm sitting in a bank branch I've never visited before, while my father presses a pen into my hand. "Just sign, princess, it's routine," he says with a grin. Near to him, my stepmother Linda keeps a tight hold on my arm, the pressure just a little too strong. In the split second they're not looking, I slide a folded note across the counter to the teller. The teller's eyes flicker down, and I pray she understands. It shouldn't have come to this. It wouldn't have, if not for the lessons my grandfather left me, lessons that started long before this bank, this pen, this moment. Growing up, my grandfather's house was the one place in Atlanta that always felt steady. Grandpa Henry lived just a few blocks from us, in a modest brick home with a creaky porch swing that seemed to welcome me more warmly than my own parents ever did. After school, I'd hop on my bike and ride over, still in my uniform skirt, eager to trade the tense air of my parents' kitchen for the smell of fresh cornbread or the warm comfort of his stories. Grandpa had worked at Heritage Bank for over 50 years, starting as a teller and retiring as the manager of one of the busiest branches in Fulton County. His whole career was proof that discipline and persistence meant more than luck or charm. Whenever I asked him why he loved banking so much, he'd lean back in his worn recliner and say, "Because money isn't just numbers, Savannah. It's security. It's freedom. It's choices." That phrase settled deep inside me, though I didn't fully understand it then. At 16, when most of my friends were worrying about dates or prom dresses, Grandpa sat me down at his dining room table after Sunday lunch. The table was cleared except for an envelope with my name written across it in his neat, looping handwriting. "This isn't your real present," he said, smiling at me over his glasses. "This is something better." Inside was a set of trust documents. He explained that he'd been saving for me since I was little, and now there was a structured fund in my name. The first portion would be released when I turned 18 to pay for college tuition. The remainder, a far larger amount, would be available once I either completed my degree or turned 22, whichever came first. I remember staring at the papers, my hands trembling. My friends' grandparents gave them sweaters or maybe a bit of graduation money. Mine had given me the blueprint for independence. "I don't want you chained to debt or tied down by desperation," Grandpa told me, resting his hand on mine. "I want you to stand on your own 2 feet. That's the real gift I can leave you." I smiled through tears, trying to take in the gravity of what he had done. My parents' reaction, however, was nothing like mine. When we told them about the trust, my mom hugged me, her eyes shining, but my dad's face tightened. "Who controls it?" he asked immediately. "What if there's an emergency? Can it be accessed early?" "It's for Savannah and Savannah alone," Grandpa said firmly. "No one else." I made sure of it. Dad forced a smile, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of resentment. I didn't think much of it at the time. Back then, I still wanted to believe my father's love for me outweighed his constant hunger for money. My dad had always been chasing the next big break, restaurants that folded in a year, landscaping businesses that never found enough clients, half-baked ideas that never lasted. And when each one collapsed, it was never his fault. It was the economy. It was bad timing. It was betrayal by someone else. My stepmother, Linda, worked as a school secretary, her steady paycheck keeping us afloat while Dad spun through failure after failure. For years, I didn't question it. I was too busy with school and friends and the safe world my grandfather created for me. But everything changed my sophomore year of college. Grandpa was diagnosed with an aggressive form of pancreatic cancer. In just 3 months, the man who had been my anchor, my teacher, my protector, was gone. I don't think I cried at the funeral. I just sat numb, staring at the polished wood of his casket, trying to accept that the man who had taught me everything about strength was no longer here. Sorting through his papers afterward, I found the trust documents again, this time with notes in his neat handwriting, arrows pointing to clauses, reminders about deadlines, instructions in case anyone ever tried to pressure me. It was as though he had known I would need extra protection. After his death, something shifted in my parents. My father started calling me more often, asking how close I was to finishing school. He spoke of it lightly, but always slipped in questions about when that money comes through. My stepmother's care packages came with notes about how much they had sacrificed for me and how hard it was for them to keep the household afloat. At first, I brushed it off as parental worry. But as graduation grew closer, the tone hardened. "Family takes care of family," my dad repeated like a mantra. "After all we've done for you, it's your turn to help us out." My mom's approach was softer, more insidious. On late-night calls, she sighed heavily, saying, "We're not getting any younger, Savannah. Parents shouldn't have to struggle while their daughter lives comfortably." Every word pressed against me like a weight I couldn't shrug off. Grandpa had built the trust to lift me up, to give me freedom. But now, even before I had full access to it, my parents were trying to turn it into a tether, pulling me back into their financial chaos. I kept remembering Grandpa's voice, steady and certain, "Never let anyone take away your independence." At 22, standing at the edge of my future, I clung to that promise like a lifeline, without knowing just how much I was going to need it. The day I walked across the stage in my cap and gown should have been the proudest moment of my life. 4 years of late nights in the library, group projects, and exams had finally paid off. When my name was called, I shook hands with the dean, grinning so wide my cheeks hurt. In the crowd, I spotted my parents. Mom waved, her face wet with tears. Dad clapped, but his attention seemed divided. He leaned toward her, whispering something urgently. His eyes weren't on me, they were darting around, calculating, as though he was already thinking 3 steps ahead. At the small lunch afterward, which they insisted on paying for, Dad raised his glass. "To Savannah," he said with exaggerated pride. "She's about to enter the real world and finally start contributing to this family." The word stung. Everyone at the table laughed politely, but my best friend Kayla, who had tagged along, gave me a sharp look. She caught the edge in his tone, the way he turned my achievement into a reminder of what I supposedly owed. I forced a smile, pretending it didn't matter. But the truth was, it hurt more than I wanted to admit. 2 days later, I was already deep into job applications. I had my MBA and strong grades, recruiters were calling. One posting in particular caught my eye, Hamilton and Price Financial Advisory, a firm known for helping families with retirement and long-term planning. It felt like a perfect fit, a way to honor the lessons Grandpa Henry had given me. When I mentioned the interview to Dad, he lit up, not with pride, but with opportunity. "That's great news," he said. "You can practice by helping me reorganize our finances. I've got some brilliant investment ideas that just need a little capital to get off the ground." The way he emphasized capital made my stomach knot. Before I could answer, he pressed on. "Actually, now that you've graduated, we should sit down and go over your inheritance. I can help you manage it. Investing is tricky business for someone with no real-world experience." I shook my head. "I want to focus on getting a job first. Then I'll figure out what to do with the money." His face darkened. "You've always been stubborn. Just like your grandfather. Sometimes I think he turned you against us." The accusation stunned me. "That's not true. Grandpa loved all of us." "Then prove it," he challenged, leaning forward. "Show us that family matters. Help the parents who sacrificed everything for you." It wasn't just Dad. Mom started calling late at night, her voice trembling. "Sweetheart, I hate to ask, but the property taxes came due today. I don't know how we're going to manage. Your father's so stressed he hasn't slept in weeks. If we just had a little help." The guilt ate at me. I didn't have much, just some savings from tutoring and part-time jobs, but I started sending money. $300 here, $500 there. I told myself it was temporary, that it would ease their burden. It never did. The requests only grew. Then came the call that froze me. A credit card company representative asked why I had missed a payment on an account I didn't recognize. Confused, I demanded details. The account had been opened 6 months earlier, in my name, using my social security number. The balance was over $14,000. My hands shook as I requested a full statement. When it arrived, I nearly dropped it. Electronics, furniture, even a weekend stay at a casino resort in Biloxi. None of it was mine. I drove straight to my parents' house, the statement clutched in my hand. The moment I walked in, I saw it, a new flat-screen TV on the wall, shiny appliances in the kitchen. Things that hadn't been there before. "You opened a credit card in my name," I said, my voice low and sharp. Dad didn't even blink. "We needed to update a few things. Your credit was better than ours. It's not like you were using it." "That's fraud," I whispered, horrified. "Don't be so dramatic," Mom interjected. "We're family. What's yours is ours. That's how it works." I stared at them, numb. "You stole from me." "We were going to pay it off," Mom said quickly, though her eyes flickered away. "With what money?" I demanded. Silence answered me. That night, I gathered every important document I owned, birth certificate, bank statements, social security card, and tucked them under my pillow. I set fraud alerts on my accounts and checked my credit daily. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel safe in my own home or even in my own name. Grandpa's trust had been meant to protect me. But my parents were already finding ways to tear it apart, piece by piece. One night, a week before an important interview, I stayed over at my parents' house. I thought it might be easier than driving across the city before dawn, but I barely slept. Around midnight, I heard them talking in the kitchen, their voices low but sharp enough to slice through the silence. "The second mortgage is 3 months behind," Mom whispered. Her words trembled like she was afraid to speak them out loud. "They're threatening foreclosure." "I know," Dad hissed. "But once we get Savannah's inheritance, we'll be fine. We can pay off everything, the cards, the car loans, even the house. Then we can start fresh somewhere else." My chest tightened. I shifted on the couch, careful not to make a sound. "But how are you going to get her to agree?" Mom asked. "She's suspicious now, ever since that credit card mess." There was a pause, then Dad's voice lowered into something cold and certain. "Victor says there's a way. He owes me from years ago. He's got connections at Heritage Bank. Says we can make it all legal looking. All we need is her signature." My stomach dropped. "And if she won't sign?" Mom pressed. "She will," Dad said, with absolute confidence. "She's a good girl. She loves her family. We just have to be convincing." I lay frozen, my heart thundering so loud I was sure they would hear. They weren't asking for my help anymore. They were planning to take everything my grandfather left me, using the one thing he designed to protect me. The next morning, I didn't wait around. I grabbed my bag, mumbled something about needing to prepare for my interview, and drove straight to Helen Carter's retirement community. Helen had been Grandpa's closest friend, a fellow banker who had worked beside him for decades. Her apartment smelled faintly of lavender and was crowded with plants, books, and framed photos of her grandchildren. When she saw me at her door, pale and shaking, she ushered me in without hesitation. I told her everything, the credit card, the overheard conversation, the plan to get me to sign papers. When I finished, Helen shook her head slowly. "I'm not surprised," she said. "Your father asked Henry for loans all the time. He always refused. Said your dad needed to learn to stand on his own. That caused no end of fights between them." Tears pricked my eyes. What should I do? They're my parents. I love them, but they're willing to steal your future, Helen interrupted firmly. "Savannah, this is financial abuse. Plain and simple. Henry set that trust up for exactly this reason, to protect you. Don't sign anything. Not a single sheet of paper." I nodded, my throat dry. "If they push," she added, "record everything, if it's legal here. And if they force you into a meeting, don't go alone. Bring someone you trust. And don't let them bully you into silence. Her words were like a lifeline. That evening, when I returned home to pick up more clothes, my parents were waiting in the living room. Too cheerful. Too rehearsed. Great news, Princess, Dad announced as soon as I walked in. We've scheduled a meeting at Heritage Bank for Thursday morning. Just some routine paperwork to finalize the trust distribution. I froze. This Thursday? Yes, Mom said quickly. This is important for your future. More important than any interview. The irony nearly made me laugh. My future? No, this was about saving theirs. Which branch? I asked carefully. Midtown, Dad replied. Victor Langford is the manager there. He's been a friend of mine since college. He'll take good care of us. Red flags blared in my head. I didn't even bank at that branch. I'd like to see the paperwork before we go, I said. Dad waved his hand. No need. It's all standard. Victor explained it to me already. Mom leaned forward, her eyes sharp. Don't be difficult, Savannah. This is simple. Just sign, and you'll have peace of mind. That night, they ordered takeout from my favorite Thai place, acting like everything was normal. We ate pad Thai and spring rolls while Dad told jokes, but I couldn't taste a thing. The forced cheerfulness felt like theater. My stomach churned the entire time. When Mom brought out cheesecake for dessert, she smiled sweetly. Wear that navy blouse I got you for Christmas. First impressions matter. I nodded mechanically. Inside, I was screaming. Back in my old bedroom, I locked the door and immediately called Kayla. Can I stay at your place after the bank meeting? I asked, voice shaking. Of course, she said instantly. Do you want me to come with you? They'll never allow it, I whispered. Then I'll wait outside, she insisted. If you're not out in 30 minutes, I'm coming in. And if I have to, I'll call the police. Her words steadied me. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't completely alone. That night, I didn't sleep. I researched power of attorney forms, asset transfer authorizations, joint account documents, anything they could try to trick me into signing. Every phrase felt like a trap. I gathered evidence too, photographs of the fraudulent credit card statements, screenshots of the charges, notes on every manipulative conversation. Grandpa had built the trust to protect me. Now it was my job to protect it, and myself. The morning of the meeting felt surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. Dad was whistling in the kitchen as he scrambled eggs, something he hadn't done since I was a child. Mom had laid out the navy blouse and a conservative skirt on my bed, paired with low heels. We want you to look professional, she said with a tight smile. Like a proper young businesswoman. Her tone made my skin crawl. It wasn't pride, it was control. The drive into Midtown was tense despite their attempts at cheerful conversation. Mom kept asking about my classes, Dad cracked jokes, but both of them watched me too closely. When we pulled into the parking lot of Heritage Bank, Dad turned to me with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. This is an important day for our family, he said. A new beginning. A chill ran through me. A new beginning for whom? The bank loomed ahead, sleek and modern with bold letters spelling Heritage Bank across the glass facade. Dad strode confidently to the reception desk. The Cole family to see Victor Langford, he announced, as though he owned the place. The receptionist smiled politely and picked up the phone. Mr. Langford will be right with you. Minutes later, Victor appeared. He was a balding man in his 50s, dressed in a tailored suit that fit too tightly around his middle. He clasped Dad's hand like they were long-lost brothers. Thomas, great to see you, he said warmly. Then he turned to me. And this must be Savannah. I've heard so much about you. The way his eyes swept over me felt more like appraisal than courtesy. I forced a polite smile but said nothing. Come on back, Victor said. We've got the consultation room all set up. Derek from our trust department will join us in just a moment. The room was tucked at the back of the bank. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls turned opaque at the touch of a button, which Victor pressed as soon as we stepped inside. For privacy, he explained with a practiced grin. The space was designed to impress: mahogany table, leather chairs, soft lighting, but it felt more like a trap. Dad sat so close I could smell his aftershave. Mom positioned herself on my other side, boxing me in. Victor spread folders across the table, the Heritage Bank logo embossed in gold. "We'll get started once Derek joins us," he said. Right on cue, a younger man with neatly combed hair entered, carrying a stack of documents. "Apologies for the delay," he said smoothly. "I'm Derek Hollis, Trust Specialist." He barely glanced at me before turning his attention to Dad. "I've prepared everything as requested, Mr. Cole." "All in order." "Excellent," Dad replied, rubbing his hands together. "Savannah's eager to get this wrapped up." I opened my mouth to protest, but Derek was already launching into a rehearsed speech. His words were a blur of jargon: asset consolidation, streamlined management, efficiency. They weren't explanations, they were camouflage. Victor nodded along, adding, "This is really the best option for your situation." Finally, Derek slid a thick stack of papers toward me. Dad immediately placed his hand over them. "I'll just look these over first," he said, flipping through quickly without actually reading. He murmured things like, "Yes, looks good," and "That's right," before pushing one page and a pen toward me. "Go ahead and sign, Princess. This is just routine." My pulse quickened. I reached for the whole stack instead, pulling it toward me. "I'd like to read everything before I sign." Mom's nails dug into my arm under the table. Her smile was sugary, but her voice was sharp. "Sweetheart, your father already checked everything. Don't waste everyone's time." I kept my voice steady, though my hands trembled. "I'll read them myself." The air in the room tightened, the false warmth draining away. For the first time, I saw the situation clearly, not a family discussion, but an ambush. I forced my eyes down to the stack of papers, heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear the words Derek was droning. The longer I read, the worse it became. Phrases leapt off the page like warning sirens: hereby transfer all assets, grant irrevocable authority, relinquish control. This wasn't routine paperwork. It wasn't a distribution of my trust. These documents would hand my entire inheritance, everything my grandfather had left me, over to my parents. "I don't understand," I said, looking directly at Derek. "These forms would give my parents complete control of my trust." "That's not what I agreed to." Derek shifted uncomfortably in his seat, glancing at Victor. Victor cleared his throat, his smile tightening. "It's a standard arrangement for family asset management. Your father explained that you wanted consolidated oversight, given your busy schedule." "I never said that," I replied firmly. Dad gave a brittle laugh. "Savannah's just nervous about money. Women usually are. That's why we're setting this up, to take the burden off her." The sexist jab made my blood boil. Mom's grip tightened on my arm under the table, her nails pressing sharp crescents into my skin. "Stop being difficult," she hissed. I noticed Derek watching this exchange, his face uneasy. But Victor kept the performance going, flipping to the signature page. "It's really quite simple," he said smoothly. "We just need you to sign here, and everything will be taken care of." Dad shoved a pen into my hand. "Just sign. It's routine." My throat was dry, my hands slick with sweat. I needed time to think, some way to stall. "May I use the restroom first?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay calm. Victor hesitated, but Derek nodded. "Of course. Down the hall to the right." "I'll go with you," Mom said quickly. "That's not necessary," I cut in, standing before she could grab me. "I'll be right back." Once inside the bathroom, I locked the stall door and pressed my back against it, shaking. My mind raced. If I signed those papers, I'd lose everything. Grandpa's voice echoed in my memory, never let anyone take away your independence. I dug through my purse with trembling hands until I found a crumpled pharmacy receipt. With a pen, I scrawled in desperate letters, "Help. Being forced to sign. They're trying to take my inheritance. Call manager. Don't let them see this." I folded the paper as small as I could and held it tight in my palm. My only chance was to pass it without my parents noticing. I splashed cold water on my face, steadied my breathing, and walked back to the consultation room. The moment I sat down, Victor pushed the documents toward me again. Dad leaned forward, tapping the signature line impatiently. "Let's get this done," he said. Just then, a young teller stepped inside with a water pitcher. My heart leapt. Opportunity. "Could I have a glass of water, please?" I asked, standing. She nodded, pouring as I moved closer. As she handed me the glass, I accidentally knocked my purse to the floor. Lipstick, keys, pens clattered everywhere. "Oh, I'm so clumsy," I said, crouching down with her to gather everything. My hand brushed hers as I slipped the folded note into her palm. I met her eyes for a fleeting second, pleading silently. She gave no sign, just helped me scoop my belongings into my bag before straightening up. Behind me, Dad tapped the documents harder. "Enough of these games. Sign it, Savannah. Now." I sat back down, clutching the pen he shoved at me. My heart hammered as I stalled for time. "Why does this form say, irrevocable transfer?" I asked, my voice sharper now. "And this line about surrendering all future claims, what does that mean?" Dad's smile vanished. His tone dropped into anger. "Legal jargon. Nothing to worry about." "Actually, it seems very concerning," I pressed. "It looks like I'd be giving up all rights." "You're overreacting," Mom snapped. "Your father knows what's best." Victor leaned forward, his patience thinning. "Miss Cole, I understand this can seem overwhelming, but your parents have explained everything. This arrangement benefits everyone." "Everyone except me," I said. Dad slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. You're embarrassing us. Sign the papers, Savannah." The air in the room turned suffocating. Mom's nails dug deeper, her whisper sharp in my ear. "Do it, or you'll regret this." I clenched the pen but didn't move. My only hope was that the teller understood my note and was already getting help. For the moment, all I could do was refuse. The tension in that room was unbearable. My father's face was red, his jaw clenched so tightly I could hear his teeth grind. Mom alternated between digging her nails into my arm and whispering poisonous guilt in my ear. "After all we've done for you, Savannah, this is how you repay us?" Victor leaned forward, his voice syrupy but sharp underneath. "Perhaps if I explain the benefits again." A knock cut him off. The door opened, and the young teller entered again, this time accompanied by a woman in a sharp navy suit. Her presence filled the room instantly. She was mid-40s, polished, calm, and in complete control. "Excuse me," she said, her tone professional but firm. "I'm Meredith Harris, branch manager. May I have a word with all of you?" Dad stood, forcing a smile. "Meredith, there's no need. We're just finalizing some family arrangements. Nothing that requires interruption." Meredith's eyes shifted to me. "Are you Savannah Cole?" Relief surged through me. "Yes," I whispered. "I'd like to speak with you privately, Miss Cole." "That won't be necessary," Dad cut in. "Savannah doesn't have any questions I can't answer." Actually, I did. My courage snapped into place. "I'm being pressured to sign away my inheritance against my will." The words hung in the air like a gunshot. Silence fell. Derek, the trust officer, went pale. He gathered his papers quickly. I think I should step out." "Sit down, Derek," Victor barked. But Meredith stepped forward, her voice cool steel. No, Derek, you may go. In fact, Mr. Langford, I'll need to speak with you as well. She turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Cole, you'll remain here with security until I return. Right on cue, a uniformed guard appeared in the doorway. Dad's face twisted with rage. This is outrageous. We are valued customers. Savannah, tell them this is all a misunderstanding. I swallowed hard, staring at him. It's not a misunderstanding. You tried to trick me into signing everything away. Mom's eyes filled with tears, her performance perfected over years of manipulation. How could you say that? After all our sacrifices? We only wanted to help you. By committing fraud? My voice rose. By opening credit cards in my name? By planning to steal everything Grandpa left me? Dad leaned in close, his whisper a dagger. If you go through with this, you're no longer our daughter. Do you hear me? You'll have money, but you won't have a family. The threat should have broken me, but instead I felt something sharp and clear slice through the fear. This wasn't love. It was control. It had always been control. Before I could answer, Meredith returned with another guard. Her expression was grim. Mr. and Mrs. Cole, I need you to step outside with Officer Daniels. We're investigating possible financial exploitation. Dad exploded. You can't keep a family apart based on lies. This is none of your business. Meredith pressed a button on the wall, and with a soft click, the glass door locked. Protecting our clients from coercion is very much our business. You may leave peacefully or we'll call the police immediately. Mom sobbed dramatically, turning to me. Savannah, tell them they're wrong. Tell them we're just trying to help. I met her gaze, my voice steady for the first time. No, Mom. What you're doing isn't help, it's theft. Dad lunged forward, but the guard stepped between us, his hand on his holster. Sir, calm down now. For a long second, Dad's eyes burned into mine, full of fury and betrayal. Finally, he spat, fine. We'll wait outside. But this isn't over, Savannah. Not by a long shot. The guards escorted them out. As the door closed, my body shook with a mixture of fear and relief. My parents had threatened me, tried to rob me, disown me, all in the span of an hour. But for the first time, I wasn't alone. Someone had seen it. Someone believed me. Meredith turned to me, her voice softening. You're safe now, Miss Cole. Let's go through this together. The room felt eerily quiet after my parents were escorted out. The glass walls, now fogged for privacy, made me feel like I was sealed inside an aquarium. My hands were trembling, my pulse pounding in my ears, but Meredith's calm presence steadied me. She pulled out a chair and gestured for me to sit. Take a breath, Miss Cole, she said softly. You're safe here. I sank into the chair, clutching my purse like it was a life raft. They tried to make me sign everything over, I said, my voice cracking. These papers, none of it made sense, but I knew it wasn't right. Meredith nodded. Let's take a look together. She drew the stack of documents toward her and began flipping through them with a practiced eye. Her brow furrowed almost immediately. This isn't a trust distribution packet, she said. This is a full asset transfer. If you had signed, all rights to your trust would have been relinquished permanently. Your parents would have been the sole beneficiaries. The words hit me like a physical blow. My stomach lurched. So I wasn't imagining it. They really were going to steal everything. Meredith looked up, her expression firm but sympathetic. Yes. And this isn't the first time I've seen something like this. We classify it as financial exploitation, when family members abuse trust to gain access to money that doesn't belong to them. It's unfortunately more common than people realize. I covered my face with my hands. Grandpa warned me. He set this trust up to protect me from exactly this. I thought maybe I was being paranoid, but he knew. Meredith tapped a section of the paperwork. See this signature line? It's pre-filled with a duplicate of your name. And here, she flipped to another page, they've marked you as granting power of attorney. This isn't sloppy, it's deliberate. A knock at the door interrupted us. Another guard leaned in. Officer Daniels is here with 2 APD detectives. Meredith gave me a reassuring nod. Are you comfortable speaking with them? I hesitated. My entire body wanted to collapse under the weight of it all, but I knew I couldn't run. Grandpa hadn't raised me to run. Yes, I said finally. 2 uniformed officers entered, followed by a detective in plain clothes, her badge clipped to her belt. She introduced herself as Detective Lawson. Miss Cole, we've been informed of a possible coercion and fraud attempt. Would you like to tell us what happened in your own words? I recounted everything, from overhearing my parents' late-night conversation about foreclosure, to discovering the fraudulent credit card, to the moment I slipped the note to the teller. My voice shook, but once I started talking, the words poured out. Lawson listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, she exchanged a glance with Daniels. Miss Cole, did you know your father attempted to impersonate you here 2 weeks ago? My head snapped up. What? Meredith pulled out a folder. We keep footage for security. Our records show that Mr. Cole came in with Mr. Langford and tried to access Savannah's account, claiming she had given verbal authorization. When our staff requested proper identification, he grew angry and left. Shock ran through me like ice water. He already tried? Yes, Lawson confirmed. And this time he escalated by bringing you here under false pretenses. That strengthens the case for attempted fraud and coercion. I felt like the ground was tilting beneath me. My own father had tried to wear my life like a costume, to slip into my place as though I were nothing more than an obstacle. Meredith placed a steady hand on my arm. You don't have to decide everything right now. But you do have options. You can press charges, request a restraining order, or both. My chest tightened. If I press charges, they'll go to jail? Potentially, Lawson said gently. Fraud of this scale is serious. Especially since there's evidence of forgery and coercion. I stared at the polished table, the papers still spread out like scars. My parents had just threatened to disown me, and yet the thought of sending them to prison made my stomach churn. I don't know if I can do that, I admitted. They're still my parents. Lawson nodded. That's understandable. Many victims feel conflicted. You don't have to decide today. But I strongly recommend a restraining order at the very least, to protect yourself. I wiped my eyes, nodding. Yes. I'll do that. The officers left to speak with my parents, who were waiting in the lobby under guard. From inside the consultation room, I could hear Dad's voice raised in fury, Mom's sobs punctuating his shouts. My body tensed with every muffled word, but Meredith's calm presence anchored me. Savannah, she said quietly, your grandfather built that trust to give you freedom. You've honored him today by refusing to give it away. Her words cracked something open in me. Tears spilled down my cheeks, hot and unstoppable. For the first time, I wasn't crying out of fear or guilt. I was grieving what I had lost, the illusion of family, the hope that my parents might one day choose me over money. By the time the detectives returned, I felt wrung out, empty but steady. Lawson handed me a card. Here's my direct line. I'll file the initial report tonight. Tomorrow, we'll start the restraining order paperwork. Meredith will keep your account secure in the meantime. I nodded numbly, tucking the card into my purse. As they left, Meredith gathered the documents into a neat stack. We'll be holding these as evidence. Victor Langford will also be suspended pending investigation. You should know, he's in deep. He prepared these forms specifically for your father. Another betrayal layered onto the pile. A family friend, someone my dad trusted, had nearly made me sign my entire life away. When I finally walked out of that bank, the late afternoon sun hit my face like a spotlight. Kayla was waiting by her car across the street, her arms folded, eyes scanning the entrance. When she saw me, she ran over and pulled me into a fierce hug. "You're okay," she whispered. "You're safe." For the first time in weeks, I let myself believe it. The next morning, I woke up in Kayla's guest room, still wearing yesterday's clothes. My body felt like it had been hollowed out. Every sound from outside, the bark of a dog, the distant hum of traffic, made me jolt upright, half expecting my parents to burst through the door. Kayla poked her head in, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "You barely moved all night," she said softly, setting one on the nightstand. "Do you want to talk, or just sit?" "Both," I admitted. My voice cracked as the events of the day before came rushing back. They almost took everything, Kay. Grandpa's trust, my future, all of it. If that teller hadn't helped me. She sat beside me, squeezing my hand. But she did. And Meredith stepped in. "You're safe now." Safe. The word felt fragile, like glass I was afraid to touch. By mid-afternoon, Meredith called. "Savannah, I thought you'd want an update," she began, her voice calm as always. "Mr. Langford has been suspended pending investigation. Internal review found irregularities in how he prepared your documents. There are traces of altered templates, forms not approved by our legal department." "So he was in on it," I said flatly. "Yes. It appears he colluded with your father. We've turned everything over to the police." I gripped the phone tighter. Another betrayal, though somehow less personal than the one I'd already endured. Langford hadn't raised me. He hadn't pretended to love me. Still, knowing he had conspired against me left a bitter taste in my mouth. Meredith went on. "The police have enough to pursue charges against both your parents and Mr. Langford. They'll ask you again about pressing charges. I know that's not easy, but please consider it carefully." I thanked her, hung up, and stared at the ceiling. The thought of testifying against my parents, of seeing my father in handcuffs, made me sick. But the thought of them walking free to try again was even worse. That evening, Detective Lawson came by Kayla's apartment. She spread papers across the kitchen table, reports, copies of forged signatures, even still images from the bank security cameras. One photo showed my father standing at the teller window 2 weeks ago, trying to pass himself off as me. The sight made my stomach twist. He didn't even bother to disguise himself, just marched in with arrogance, as if the world owed him my life. Lawson tapped the papers. "We can charge him with attempted fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Your stepmom too, for aiding and abetting." "And Langford?" I asked. "Bank fraud and collusion. He'll likely lose his license, possibly face prison time." My chest tightened. "I don't know if I can put them in prison. They're my parents." Lawson's eyes softened. "Savannah, I won't pretend this is simple. But I want you to ask yourself something. If you don't stop them now, what will they do next? If they were willing to rob their own daughter, what's left?" Her words lingered long after she left. That night, I pulled out Grandpa's old letters. I'd kept them in a shoebox, his handwriting neat and careful, always reminding me to stand tall. One line in particular echoed in my head: "Courage isn't about who you're standing against, it's about what you're standing for." I realized then that pressing charges wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting myself, honoring him, and maybe even preventing them from hurting someone else. The following week, Lawson called again. "We've spoken with your parents' creditors. They're drowning in debt, tens of thousands behind on loans, tax liens piling up. They saw your trust as their lifeline. Without it, they'll spiral further." A pang of guilt shot through me. Was I condemning them to ruin? But guilt had kept me quiet too long. I met Lawson at the precinct 2 days later. With trembling hands, I signed the papers requesting a restraining order. "I'm not pressing criminal charges yet," I told her, "but I need legal protection." She nodded. "That's a good start. And if you change your mind, we'll be ready." When I stepped out of the station, the sky was overcast, heavy with summer heat. Kayla was waiting by the car. "How did it go?" she asked. "I signed for the restraining order," I said. My voice was steadier than I felt. She pulled me into a hug. "I'm proud of you." Over the next few weeks, I tried to piece together a normal life. I moved officially into Kayla's spare room, trading the chaos of my parents' house for her quiet apartment full of secondhand furniture and mismatched mugs. I started therapy with Dr. Whitaker, a kind woman with gray curls who helped me untangle the guilt and fear knotted inside me. "You were raised to believe loyalty meant silence," Dr. Whitaker said during one session. "But silence in the face of abuse isn't loyalty, it's surrender. You've chosen differently." Her words became a mantra. Meanwhile, Langford's scandal hit the local papers. Heritage Bank manager suspended amid fraud probe. My father's name wasn't printed, but I knew it was only a matter of time. Mom sent me texts, long, rambling messages alternating between begging for forgiveness and accusing me of betrayal. I didn't respond. The hardest moment came one afternoon when a letter arrived at Kayla's. It was from Mom, written in shaky cursive. "Savannah, I never meant for it to go this far. Your father was desperate, and I didn't know how to stop him. Please believe me, I only wanted to keep our family together. I'm so sorry. Love, Mom." I read it over and over, my emotions twisting in circles. Part of me wanted to believe her. Another part remembered her nails digging into my arm as she whispered, "Do it, or you'll regret this." The truth was somewhere in between. She had been both victim and accomplice. And I couldn't untangle which was worse. As the investigation deepened, I stood at a crossroads. Pressing charges would mean severing ties completely, exposing everything in court. Not pressing them meant always looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next scheme. Late one night, Kayla found me sitting on the balcony, staring at the city lights. "You're not choosing between your parents and freedom," she said quietly. "You're choosing between fear and peace. That's what this comes down to." I thought of Grandpa, of his trust in me, of the way he had looked at me that day at the dining table. "I want you to stand on your own 2 feet." I whispered into the night, "I will." Moving into Kayla's apartment wasn't glamorous. Her spare room was barely big enough for my suitcase and a mattress we dragged in from a thrift store, the closet already crammed with boxes of holiday decorations. But it was safe. For the first time in months, I could sleep without keeping one ear tuned for footsteps outside my door. The first few weeks felt like walking through rubble. Every day I woke up with the same question: what now? My parents were blocked from contacting me directly, thanks to the restraining order, but Mom still tried. She left voicemails on Kayla's phone, mailed letters to my work once I got hired, even showed up at Kayla's building once, crying in the parking lot until security escorted her away. Dad, meanwhile, disappeared into silence. I later heard he had left town, chasing another doomed business opportunity. Therapy became my anchor. Dr. Whitaker, patient and unflinching, listened as I poured out years of guilt and confusion. "You grew up equating love with sacrifice," she said during one session. "But what your parents demanded wasn't love, it was control. You're learning to separate the two." Her words stung at first, but slowly they began to settle in. Each week, I left her office feeling a little less like prey and a little more like a person with choices. Helen, Grandpa's old colleague, called me often too. She told me stories about him I'd never heard, how he once stayed late at the bank for weeks to help a single mother straighten out her finances, how he refused promotions that would have taken him away from the community he loved. "Henry would be so proud of you," she said one afternoon. "You did exactly what he wanted, you protected yourself." Those conversations reminded me I wasn't just surviving for myself. I was carrying his legacy forward. By late summer, I accepted an offer from Hamilton and Price Financial Advisory. My interview had been nerve-wracking, but when I told them honestly why I wanted to work in financial planning, how I knew firsthand the damage manipulation could cause, they listened. The hiring manager, a sharp woman named Elaine, said, "Experience is one thing, Savannah. But empathy? That's rarer. You'll be good at this. My first weeks at the firm were overwhelming. Piles of forms, endless acronyms, clients with tangled financial lives, but for once, the complexity didn't scare me. I wasn't just shuffling papers, I was helping people protect their futures. And every time I explained a contract clearly to a client, I thought of my parents trying to drown me in jargon at the bank. Each moment felt like reclaiming something they'd tried to take. The trust fund itself remained untouched in my account. I refused to let guilt poison it. Instead, I began planning how to use it wisely: investments, a savings cushion, and one day, a project in Grandpa's name. Then, just as the air began to feel lighter, a letter arrived. Handwritten, in Mom's familiar cursive. Savannah, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I made terrible choices, following your father when I should have stopped him. I told myself it was for family, but really I was afraid of losing him, afraid of losing everything. Please believe me when I say I regret what we did. I've left him. I filed for divorce. I want to start over. I don't expect you to trust me again, but I hope one day you'll let me prove I'm more than his shadow. Love, Mom. I read it twice, my chest aching. For months, I had dreamed of hearing those words: I'm sorry, I left him. And yet, I didn't know what to do with them now. Could I ever trust her again? Kayla found me staring at the letter that evening. Are you going to respond? She asked carefully. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to throw it away. Another part still wants a mom. Then don't rush, she said gently. You get to decide the terms this time. That night, I tucked the letter into the shoebox with Grandpa's notes. Not forgiven. Not forgotten. Just waiting, for when I was ready. For the first time, I felt the ground beneath me solidify. I had a job. I had a home, even if temporary. I had friends and mentors who believed in me. My parents' betrayal still shadowed me, but it no longer defined me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was rebuilding. A year after that day at Heritage Bank, I stood in a small community center in Atlanta, facing a group of young adults seated around folding tables. Some were college students, some just starting jobs, all of them wide-eyed and uncertain about money. On the whiteboard behind me, in bold letters, was the name of the nonprofit I had founded, the Henry Cole Foundation. I cleared my throat, nervous but proud. Financial freedom isn't about wealth, I told them. It's about choices. About knowing no one can take away what's yours unless you let them. As I spoke, I thought of Grandpa, of the envelope he handed me at 16, of his steady voice saying, "Independence is your shield." I thought of how close I'd come to losing everything, not because of strangers, but because of the people who should have loved me most. The months after the bank incident had been brutal, but they had shaped me. Therapy taught me that I wasn't responsible for my parents' failures. Work at Hamilton and Price gave me purpose, turning my pain into something useful. And slowly, I stopped seeing myself as a victim and started seeing myself as a survivor. My father never contacted me again. Rumors trickled through relatives that he'd moved to another state, chasing yet another scheme. My stepmom kept writing, letters filled with remorse. I hadn't answered yet, though I hadn't thrown them away either. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't a gift you gave to erase the past, it was something you gave yourself, when you were ready. I wasn't there yet. But maybe one day. When the workshop ended, a girl barely 19 approached me. My parents always say I'm too young to make decisions, she said shyly. But after hearing you, I feel like maybe I can. Her words filled me with warmth. That was Grandpa's legacy, living through me. Not the money, not the trust account, but the courage to stand tall even when the ground shifted under your feet. As the students filed out, I stood by the door, sunlight spilling across the room. A year ago, I'd been a terrified daughter scribbling a desperate note for help. Now, I was a woman who had faced betrayal and built something new from the wreckage. I whispered to myself, steady and certain, I'm standing on my own 2 feet. Have you ever found yourself standing up to the very people who were supposed to protect you? What helped you find the strength to set those boundaries? Share your experience in the comments, I'd love to hear it. And if this story spoke to you, please like and subscribe. Your voice might give someone else the courage to safeguard their own future. Thanks for being here, and remember, real family lifts you up, they don't hold you back.